welcome back. This is Shanita Rousey of ShanitaRousey.com, and today I want to talk about my self-love journey. So in honor of this whole love month, February, we are all about doing for one another. We're all about celebrating love, thinking about love, and sometimes we forget about the self-love, the real self-love that happens between you in yourself, right? So many times we're looking for different validations and we're looking for people from the outside to really love us, but we have failed to really love ourselves. So when I think about my self-love journey, I think about growing up, right? I had amazing parents who loved me, who did things for me, and I also had family members who would criticize me or say that I wasn't pretty enough or that I wasn't good enough. And this teasing and these different things really caused me to be sad on the inside. I really didn't understand it much as a child. The only thing I knew is that I was feeling like I wasn't enough. I felt like I wasn't deserving of love. I felt like something had to be wrong with me. There's something wrong with me to cause me to feel like the black sheep or the person who is just not like the others. And so growing up, I remember going into school. I always been petite, right? I'm always been a little bit. And in school, I remember people teasing me about being thin, people teasing me and saying that, nobody wants you, right? You gonna always be thin. Like, do you eat? And I wanted to be like, do you eat, right? And so it's always something that I have dealt with. And so when I thought about that, has in my school years, I thought about the younger years when I was teased. And I kind of just put that together like, man, something must really be wrong with me. Like, I don't have that bottle, Coke bottle shaped like the other girls. I'm not built that way. But I know that there's something good in me somewhere, right? But being blinded by everybody else's comments, everybody else's thoughts, I just felt like maybe not, right? Maybe I'm not the one. Maybe no one, does want me, right? I'm not loved. And so I know you can relate to that in terms of your life and different things that you have gone through to say like, man, something must be wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not like the other people, which really, when we think about it, it really causes us to really compare ourselves to other people, right? So as I go on into my self-love journey, I began to continue to hold those feelings of rejection and just feeling like I wasn't wanted, that I wasn't loved. And as I grew up, I began to pursue love. I began to pursue it in boys, in men. In my late teenage years, I had a sugar daddy. I had a sugar daddy who showed me attention, who wanted me, right? And so when I thought about those things, I equated it to love. I felt like, okay, if he's showing me this attention, if he's giving me what I want, he must love me, right? I must be good enough. There must be something that I have that makes him want to do this, right? Not thinking that really what I was doing was covering up what I really needed, right? Yeah, I'm getting attention. Yeah, I'm getting things, but it doesn't necessarily equate to love, right? And so sometimes when we're wanting love and we're wanting acceptance, we begin to settle and compromise and do things that we wouldn't normally do just because we're wanting to keep that so-called love, that so-called attention within. I know I'm not the only one, right? Who has done things to keep love, quote unquote love, right? You doing the things so the person won't leave you, right? You're sleeping with that boyfriend because he's saying that if you don't sleep with me, then you don't love me, right? All those little things that we fall for when it comes to accepting love. And so when I thought about the mistakes I was making in terms of men and wanting love and wanting acceptance, I really understood in my time alone, in those lonely nights, when I just didn't feel like it was enough. I had to really sit down and say, you know what? You are really not getting the love that you want. There's still something missing. There's still something within you that is craving more. This is not the love that you want. It's not, contingent, right? Sometimes, what people, when you do this, that equates to love, but it wasn't it. I was missing something. And so, when I really think about this journey, I really think about so much time that I want to say wasted, but it really wasn't wasted. It was time of discovery. It was failed. It was like falling forward, if you will, right? I was learning things along the way about me, learning that I use manipulation in some ways to get what I want, thinking it was what I want, but really it wasn't, right? I was still missing that love. I was missing that self love, that validation, because it stemmed all the way from my childhood. When I think about those times when I just wanted to be accepted, when I just wanted to be loved, when I just wanted the person to say I was proud of you, I understood as I went through my life that I was doing things to please people and I wasn't really doing anything to please myself, right? To really give myself the love I deserve. And so as I continued to go on my journey, there was one time, 2 years ago, I began to write my book, The Power of You. And in this book, I really talk about my journey and how I was able to overcome the unforgiveness and the bitterness and really letting go and becoming one with myself and becoming one with the person that God has called me to be. When I began to take this journey, it was not easy, right? But it all started from an altercation, right? With a particular person. The person began to tell me that, they didn't do that. They were not acknowledging how I felt, right? Because the people, sometimes we can do things to one another and we don't really understand the effects of what we do, the effects of our words, the effects of our actions, but it does do something for the person. And so being in a place where I felt like the person wasn't hearing me, the person wasn't accepting and taking ownership of how I felt, wasn't really apologizing, I began to cry. I began to really feel sad because I was like, what is this? Like, you're finding the courage to forgive, you're finding the courage to let go, and then they deny it, right? Like, what do you do? What do you do when the person that you want to forgive is not recognizing that something happened, not recognizing that there was pain involved, right? And so I began to cry and I said, God, I don't know why year after year, even to my adulthood, that I'm allowing this thing to hurt me, this thing to really crush me and really to justify who I am, right? This comes from a girl who's been in church, who knows the word of God, but it still was like I wasn't really getting it, right? I wasn't really understanding that what I needed all along was God's love, right? And so when I talked to the person, they wasn't hearing me, and I began to pray and I began to ask God to help me. Like, what is it that I need to do to get over this, to move past it, to be healed, to be whole, to be free? And so when I really began to take a look at me and what I was really doing to myself, right? Because that sometimes in life we can cause ourselves to be stuck in a place because we refuse to just simply release it. And so since a little girl, I've always loved to write, and I would write my feelings in my journey. And so years ago, God gave me the title of The Power of You, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I really didn't know what it meant at the time. But this particular situation, this particular time, I began to write and I began to really share and express everything that I was really dealing with, like going through the journey. And God began to just show me and to help me to understand that, number one, in order to start my self-love journey, I had to really understand God's love, right? I had to understand that the love that God has for me is what will help me to eternally really love myself. And so when I began to accept God's love, I began to understand who I was in Him, because that takes care of the needing the validation from other people. That takes the whole I need to be accepted and all of these things away, because you understand in the beginning that God loves you, and you understand that in Him you find your identity. And so going on this self-love journey, I had no idea what this would become of. I didn't know what God was doing in the process. Only thing I knew is that I was tired of being broken. I was tired of being rejected. I was tired of dealing with this pain that caused me to make bad decisions. This pain that caused me to settle. This pain that caused me to feel that I wasn't good enough. And so I said, this is the time for me to really heal, for me to really overcome. And so I began to write. And within a short time, I finished the book. And I cried because I was like, wow, God, you gave me every step that I needed along this journey. And so for me, the self love journey was intentional. It was really intentional because I needed to know that I was someone, right? You know that story. I love movies. So, House Party, when they be like, I am somebody, right? So, with thinking about that, seriously, and saying that, understanding that I was loved was number one in regards to this self love journey. I had to accept God's love for me. I had to accept the simple fact that He created me and He made me fearfully and wonderfully. And no, I'm not like everybody else. No, I'm not their size. No, I don't have this or I don't have that. But what I do have is me. And I had to really embrace who I was completely and saying, I am enough. Because truth be told, when I think back, being petite, being little bit, I still was able to get numbers, right? I still able to connect with boys and men. So it wasn't like, there was something wrong with me, but because of what I experienced in my past, I thought so. And so the first part of that is really understanding God's love. And the second part is really accepting it, taking ownership that I am somebody and really allowing myself to heal from the inside out. And so this is what this channel is really about. To really deal with the inside of us, because when we deal with the inside of us, we deal with the whole us. And that's how we can be healed and live our best lives. And so the self-love journey is a process. It's a continued journey, right? You have to continue to love yourself. You have to continue to affirm yourself. You have to continue to be there for you, right? I know we like to love on everybody else, but you have to be intentional about every morning loving on you. So even if that's looking in a mirror and saying, you know what, you're beautiful, right? You're wonderful, right? Whatever it is that you have to say to yourself to really make yourself know that you are valuable and that you are needed in this world. And understanding that God's love is unconditional, right? He really loves you, right? With all of his being, right? And so you take those things into consideration, you begin to heal so that you can really begin to accept the things that you want. Because so oftentimes, we're settling for different things that we really don't want, when in reality, if we take some time to release what we don't want and accept what we do want, we can live much better lives, right? You won't be so quick to compare yourself or to be envious or jealous of other people, because you understand that what you possess on the inside of you is just as amazing, right? So I hope my journey has been helpful to you. Those of you who have been discouraged, who've been rejected, who's been disappointed, to let you simply know that you can love yourself. You can find joy in being you. You can find joy in the simple fact that you are amazing, right? And there's nothing that your issue, your pain, your hurt can keep you from God's love. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. That was really is what fulfills you, because you're so busy looking for it in things, in people. But when you really think about love and self-love, it really comes from understanding God's love for you. So I hope that you like this video. Please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you are new. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video.